Oh, some good shit. Oh, this is online. No one I fuck with. Already done my dailies for the day, so means I'm just working on my deck. Got the burst, got the rifle upgrade. Readiness, which is a great core, but this shit is nice. Kind of want to use super serum. I might. That showed it below. So, yeah. Not the best gun, but we're working on it. I still gotta do a little on the way to sure. We'll start with priority 1.
Fireteam, this is a rescue mission. You're boarding Katanga.
Oh, no damage the entire mission? Fuck. What the fuck happened? Oh, shit. Oh, that's trash. Flare? It's easy fix.
Decide whether to support the child. Their money, their choice. But no one wants to say that. We want to say, no, a man doesn't get to decide whether to support his child. A man has a moral obligation and a legal obligation to support his child. And if he chooses not to support his child with his money, then the woman and the courts and the police will make him support his child with his money. Isn't that interesting? Keep your laws off my body. Sure, but keep your laws off my money. No, can't do that. So, Dave concludes, If he's wrong about men having the right to decide whether to support the child, maybe he's also wrong about women having the right to decide whether to abort the child.
And if I'm wrong, then perhaps we're wrong. Figure it out for yourselves.
Brilliant way to get to the heart of a discussion about rights and obligations. I talked about Chappelle's comments 3 years ago when Sticks and Stones came out, and a lot of other people discussed what he said. What's important now is that Dave Chappelle may be a prophet, because if you look at what led into his discussion of abortion, if you look at the point he was really making, you'll understand a lot of what's going on in the world right now. In fact, if you were to listen to what Dave said, his point about abortion, and you were to ask yourself, assuming that Dave is right, what's going to happen next? You would say, Dave's right. Roe v. Wade is about to be overturned. 3 years later, here we are. We're going to go through Dave's thoughts on the Me Too movement and why he said that the Me Too movement would lead to a backlash on issues like abortion. But before we get into a topic that everyone disagrees on, let me briefly mention something we can all agree on. Internet security. That's valuable. Get a subscription. Passwords have been. Now you can be fully covered on all of your devices for just $1.99 per month. How dumb do you have to download the app, get a subscription to Atlas VPN? Understanding the connection between the Me Too movement and the Supreme Court's decision on Roe v. Wade. But that's what Dave Chappelle and Dave Wood are here for. Before Dave Chappelle talked about abortion in Sticks and Stones, he talked about his friend and fellow comedian, Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart's dream was to host the Oscars. He finally got the chance to host the Oscars. But people dug up some of his old tweets. One of these old tweets, he said that if his son were to play with a dollhouse, he'd smash it over his son's head and say, "Stop, that's gay." Clearly a joke, but in telling that particular joke, it certainly sounded like Kevin Hart didn't want his children to be gay. Long story short, Kevin didn't get to host the Oscar. His dream was shattered because he had offended a group that he could get away with offending when he tweeted the joke, but couldn't get away with offending by the time he was supposed to host the Oscars. Kevin broke a rule. Dave explains the rule for us.
The rule is that no matter what you do in your artistic expression, you are never, ever allowed to upset the alphabet people.
Who are the alphabet people, Dave?
I'd say the letters, but I don't want to conjure their anger. It's too late now. I'm talking about them L's, them P's, them T's, and the T's.
Dave Chappelle said that there's a rule. Never upset the LGBTQ community. But he referred to them as the alphabet people, which was upsetting to the LGBTQ community. He stated the rule and then immediately broke the rule. And quite a bit of Sticks and Stones was offensive to the LGBTQ community. So why was Dave deliberately offending that particular community? Well, think about it. Kevin Hart had a dream. That dream was destroyed over a joke. He joked about something on Twitter that he wouldn't be allowed to joke about just a few years later. Too bad for Kevin Hart. But Kevin has friends. Friends like Dave Chappelle. Dave thought that it was wrong to destroy his friend Kevin's dream over a joke. Dave believed that his friend Kevin Hart had been wronged. Wronged by whom? Starting to see where we're going with this? After talking about Kevin Hart, who had been canceled for upsetting the LGBTQ community, Dave talked about another friend, Louis C.K. I've never watched Louis C.K. I assume he's funny because he's always ranked pretty high on lists of the greatest comedians of all time, but not familiar with him. Turns out that Louis C.K. liked masturbating in front of women. Pretty creepy. He would ask the women for permission to masturbate in front of them. But because of his popularity, the women felt pressured to consent, even if they thought it was disgusting. Louis got away with this for a long time, until the Me Too hashtag. Now, the Me Too movement was massively important, because a lot of men have been getting away with sexual harassment and rape for a long, long time. So, finally, sexual predators like Harvey Weinstein were being exposed and punished because women saw the opportunity, they united, they came to each other's defense, and they gave each other the support they needed to share their stories about what men in positions of power had done to them. Some of the women who came forward had stories about Louis C.K.'s masturbation problem. Well, what's the appropriate punishment for a comedian who likes to masturbate in front of women? There was a power imbalance there, so it seems like he deserved something. But what's the appropriate punishment? According to some people, the appropriate punishment for Louis C.K. was permanent cancellation. He had to be canceled forever. But Louis has friends. Louis has a lot of fans. And if these friends and fans don't think he deserves to be canceled forever, going to be some tension between, on one hand, the friends and fans, and on the other hand, the people who want him permanently canceled. One of Louis C.K.'s friends, of course, is Dave Chappelle.
You know, ladies, I said it in my last special, I got a lot of trouble for this. I told you you were right. But the way you're going about it is not going to work. But I'm biased. I said it. Louis C.K. was a very good friend of mine before he died in that terrible masturbation accident.
Dave says that women are right for exposing abusers and demanding justice, but that women are somehow sabotaging their own agenda.
I told you you were right. But the way you're going about it is not going to work.
Dave then goes on to argue that a man who likes to masturbate in front of women, but who has been confronted about this and who has realized that he was wrong and who has agreed to stop, doesn't seem like much of a threat to women anymore. But when Louis C.K. started to do shows again, many women said that he shouldn't be allowed to do shows because he's too dangerous. Again, Louis has grown. So, Dave is claiming that women are targeting people like Louis C.K. in a way that's backfiring. And what's the result?
Said it was going to get worse, and they said I was tone deaf. But 8 states, including your state, have passed the most stringent anti-abortion laws this nation has seen since Roe v. Wade. I told you.
Now, it may seem weird to connect Louis C.K.'s masturbation problem to abortion laws, but think about what Dave is saying, because he's absolutely right. We have trouble seeing it because we're usually on one side or the other, and it blinds us what's going on. So, to illustrate the point, think about a completely different part of the world in a completely different situation. In the Muslim world, the two biggest groups are Sunnis and Shias. Historically, Sunnis and Shias have fought a lot. In some countries, like Saudi Arabia, there's a massive Sunni majority. In Iran, there's a massive Shia majority. But in Iraq, there are a bunch of Sunnis and a bunch of Shias. Suppose, hypothetically, that only 1% of the population of Iraq wants religious violence. Suppose that only 1% of Sunnis want to fight Shias and that only 1% of Shias want to fight Sunnis. One day, one of the Sunnis who want violence blows up a Shia mosque.
What the fuck, dude?
Well, that 1% of Shias who wanted violence against Sunnis suddenly goes up to 5 or 10%. They want retaliation. So, some of them retaliate by going and blowing up a Sunni mosque. But now that 1% of Sunnis who wanted violence goes up too. So they retaliate. Then the number of Shias who want violence goes up because they're being
Oh my God.
attacked and they retaliate. And the number of
What?
cities who want violence goes up. Pretty soon, there's a civil war. Even though, before things escalated, the vast majority of people didn't want to fight. The point here is that people in a society who have a history of
Jesus.
dispute and even hostility can reach a kind of equilibrium, kind of fragile stability. But that equilibrium, that fragile stability, can be taken for granted. And it can be thrown off very quickly when things start to escalate. People feel like they're under attack. So, Dave Chappelle talked about the LGBTQ community. He called them the alphabet people. Why would he want to make fun of people who've been marginalized and harassed and bullied? Well, at one point, not too long ago, the message from the LGBTQ community was, hey, we know some of you disagree with us. We know that some of you have a problem with our lifestyles. We're human beings, and we're citizens, and we have rights. We shouldn't be threatened. We shouldn't be attacked. And the rest of you need to learn to live with us as part of the world we're all sharing. That was a message that a lot of people, even a lot of people who didn't approve of various LGBTQ issues, could nevertheless agree with. Let's all try to get along in spite of our differences. But a few years ago, that message suddenly changed to, you have to agree with us on everything or we're going to destroy you. And we want to teach your children, even if they're in kindergarten, about LGBTQ issues. By the way, if you've ever said anything that's in any way critical of anyone in our community, you have to be canceled forever. In other words, a group that was once calling for tolerance is now promoting a kind of intolerance.
Hey, check this.
And we've seen this thousands of times through history. A group that's marginalized or mistreated or oppressed somehow gets a bit more power in society, and what do? They immediately use their newfound power to attack everyone who disagrees with them. That's a normal human tendency. Everyone does this. But if you're not careful, you can end up undermining whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. You end up creating enemies when you don't need to. So, you see that Kevin Hart has been picked to host the Oscars. That's when certain people start looking through his tweets to dig up dirt. Find a tweet that's very offensive to the LGBTQ community. How should the LGBTQ community react? Well, again, Kevin Hart has a lot of friends and a lot of fans. The LGBTQ community could respond and say, yes, we see the tweet, and if he's serious, that's a problem, but he's a comedian, so we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he's joking. We hope that he'll be more careful in the future, and we look forward to seeing Kevin host the Oscars because we love him. Notice, they've responded to the tweet. Kevin's been exposed for what he said, but Kevin has no reason to be upset. His friends and fans have no reason to be upset, and the LGBTQ community hasn't made any enemies. Or they could adopt a totally different approach and say, no way, we saw the tweet, totally unacceptable, he's canceled. And keeping him from hosting the Oscars may seem like a victory for the LGBTQ community, but is it though? Is it worth turning some of his friends and fans into enemies? Then there was the Me Too campaign, much needed. But at what point does the campaign to expose men for sexual harassment and abuse become a tool for crushing men and bringing down the patriarchy? Take Louis C.K. He deserved something for what he did. But what's a fitting punishment for inviting women to your room to watch you masturbate? I don't know. But I know that there are two main ways women could react to Louis C.K.'s return to stand-up. They could say, you know, what he did was disgusting. He used his fame to manipulate women. But he's suffered for that quite a bit. Seems he's learned his lesson, so we look forward to seeing him move forward. No enemies created. Zero. Or they could say, What he did was absolutely inexcusable. There's nothing that man can ever do to redeem himself. As long as he exists, no women will ever be safe from his masturbation antics. He needs to stay out of comedy until he dies. If you take the second route, say hi to all the enemies just created. Now, we talked about Kevin Hart and Louis C.K., but that was just because those were the examples that Dave Chappelle used. In reality, there are endless examples of this every single day, and not just from the LGBTQ community or from the Me Too campaign. Everyone seems to be doing everything in their power to create as many enemies as possible. Disagree with me about anything, and you're a Nazi. Disagree with me about anything, and you're a racist. If you spend enough time treating people like your enemies, they're going to become your enemies. Chappelle applied this reasoning to abortion laws. There are strong feelings on all sides of this issue. It's always been difficult to have any stability on an issue like this, but for decades, most people tolerated the status quo, even if they found certain aspects of it morally reprehensible. They might push for stricter laws or for less strict laws, but for the most part, people managed to get along in spite of their differences. Okay, I think the life of the child is more important than the rights of the mother. You think the rights of the mother are more important than the life of the child. I'm going to try to get people to agree with me. You're going to try to get people to agree with you. But at the end of the day, life and rights are both important. So both trying to do the right thing, which means that you don't have to view each other as hopelessly evil. Then everyone started mobbing up on Twitter and attacking each other over everything, and states started passing stricter and stricter abortion laws. Why is that? Well, at some point, lawmakers may have been willing to compromise, but people turned them into enemies. The lawmakers decided it's a waste of time trying to compromise with people who now spend all their time calling them Nazis and racists and fascists. But what does this have to do with Roe v. Wade and the Supreme Court? Here goes. Supreme Court justices are experts in legal matters, but they're still human beings. They want to be liked. They don't want to be hated. You can annoy them. So what happens if they realize that you're going to hate them no matter what they do? What happens if you don't just call them Nazis and racists and fascists, you accuse them of being high school gang rapists? What happens when they stop trying to get along with you because you've made it impossible to get along with you? Suppose they not only give up on the idea of getting along with the people who hate them, but also see a glaring problem with Roe v. Wade. Do you know what the glaring problem with Roe v. Wade is? In Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court decided that women have a constitutional right to an abortion. What's the glaring problem with that ruling? Read the Constitution and you'll find out there's absolutely nothing in the Constitution that comes within a million miles of anything about a right to an abortion. This doesn't mean that women can't have an abortion. It just means that it's not a constitutional right, which means that states get to make their own abortion laws. But if you believe that all women should have a right to an abortion, you don't want states to make their own abortion laws because some states will disagree with you. So you want a right to an abortion to be imposed on states, even if the people in those states and their elected officials are against abortion. Now, the federal government can do that. The federal government that's over the entire country, can make a law guaranteeing the right to an abortion. But it hasn't. Federal law will have to go through the House of Representatives and the Senate, and it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. They might be able to pass a law with some limited abortion rights, something like first trimester, but that won't be enough for the pro-choice crowd. People who are pro-choice generally want more than they can get from the states, and they want more than the federal government can currently give them. So, what do they need? They need the Supreme Court to just declare it. They need the Supreme Court to magically find it somewhere between the lines of the U.S. Constitution. That's exactly what the Supreme Court did in 1973. Horrible misuse of power. Keep in mind, you can be pro-choice and still recognize that the Supreme Court shouldn't be playing Where's Waldo with rights they want to find in the U.S. Constitution. So, if the Roe v. Wade decision was obviously bogus, why did it stand for so long? Easy. Just reverse the process and think about what would happen. If a later Supreme Court overrules the earlier decision, then abortion rights go back to the states. And some states are going to outlaw abortion. And if you're a Supreme Court justice, you might not want states to outlaw abortion. Or, even if you think that abortion rights should be returned to the states, you probably still don't want to be one of the justices who decides to overrule Roe v. Wade, because you will instantly be hated by a ton of people. People are going to hate you. People are going to call you the most horrible names they can come up with. People are going to accuse you of doing the worst things imaginable. People are going to threaten you. You don't want to deal with that mess, so you'll just let Roe v. Wade slide. But wait a moment. What if society becomes so divided that people hate you no matter what you do? What if people are going to call you names and accuse you of doing horrible things and threaten you no matter what you do? Well, then you've got nothing to lose. They already hate you and want you dead. Why not tick them off a little more? What are they going to do? Threaten you louder? And that, my friends, is how something like the Me Too movement leads to the collapse of Roe v. Wade, just as our friend Dave Chappelle predicted. But we can simplify this even more. If you've been a victim of some sort of mistreatment from others, the normal human reaction is to empathize with you. If you've been attacked because you're gay or trans, or you're a woman who's been raped, the normal human response is empathy. But if you've been a victim of some sort of mistreatment and you weaponize your victim status and you use it to start attacking anyone who disagrees with you, the empathy that many people would feel towards you is replaced by anger. Instead of thinking, oh, this poor woman was sexually harassed by some Hollywood pervert, people think, hey, this is the woman who got my friend fired by harassing his company over something he said on Facebook. Dave Chappelle's criticism of the Me Too movement was that even though the women were right to complain, they were going about it in a way that was producing anger towards them, not empathy. And if you produce enough anger towards your group, you're going to get a backlash. But that's just one group. Again, everyone is doing this. Given the amount of anger and rage we're producing all day, every day, I predict that this will be the generation of the backlash. Let's see if Dave Wood is as much of a prophet as Dave Chappelle.
Hello? What's going on, lady? I am saving right now. That's about it. My grades won't be coming. What's up? Yeah, let me finish this mission of this game I'm playing, and then I'll swing by. Alright. Okay. Alright, yeah.
Watch for the stragglers!
Bro, come back here where we can help you.
Please access the primary power regulator. Activate all systems. Full draw.
Oh shit. You said you gonna hold it down, okay. Alright, brother. Got it. You got it, my boy. Shit.
Please disable the safety limiters on the Kasi Core's auger.
Alright. Hold it down, don't be good.
Don't get tunnel vision!
outside code 260479 and press the button marked Shakti XS.
Back to the elevator. Move! Xeno Queen! Can't kill her. Get the hell out! Don't stop! Jag it! Don't stop for nothing! Move! Electric mark! Jesus! Get that thing clear of her!
Buckle in, shore party. We're burning to escape debris scanner.
That was good shit, boys. My God. That was a good run, man. That was a good run of that. Holy crap. Oh, that was good shit. Lead team, baby. Alright. That was rough.
You found old dog tags on Katanga. Shit. Rumor control. This don't go beyond you and me. Comprendo? Corporal Olivia's ship who owned these dog tags, that's our colonel. Some 20 years back, her unit responded to the Xeno outbreak at a Seegson colony. The survivors evac to an orbital refinery, Katanga, but the bugs came with. Shit went bad. A civilian with a grudge took control of the refinery. The rescue dropships got wasted and ship had to leave survivors through the station to the hangars. A lot of people got killed. Cities and ship's team. The bad guy herded them into Xeno ambushes, ground them up in the works. Now ship don't talk about how it ended, even with me. And I served 2 tours with her now. So don't you go asking her nothing.
Jesus. Well.
Does that smell you, Marine? You must have run into Xeno shedding. Did you get a scan? Look at that. Not from a chest burster. It's way too big. Has to be from a Praetorian. When a Xeno hive gets big, around 300 individuals, the queen secretes royal jelly. They feed it to adult drones, and it triggers a second stage metamorphosis. I don't think we know what that process looks like. Maybe they spin a cocoon. I'd love to know. Anyway, what comes out is a Praetorian, nearly as large as a queen. Mean as hell. They've got a head plate that's nearly impenetrable. They use it as a shield and for ramming attacks. Praetorians guard the queen and the deepest levels of the nest. They don't leave often. Good data. But you might want to hit the showers.
Thanks, Colonel.
Look, tell Herrera it takes this stuff a while to ferment. Okay. Regulations require me to state that the battalion...
Okay, so we've got level 3 on this. Fire rate on hit, so it gets faster and faster. We can fire it. Okay. Pretty cool. Burst pistol! Effective range, and then it gets accuracy and damage. It's kind of nice. Okay. Let's clean up first again. Yeah, today for G, bro. What's up? Oh, yeah. Anyway. Man, accuracy again. Damn it, on kill. Whoa. This is terrible. Okay. Shout out, guys. For those of you who are here tuning in, thank you for tuning in. And we'll be back tomorrow. Catch you guys later.